Ever since this task was introduced, I knew that I wanted the creations to portray my perception of both items, as well as others' thoughts and feelings when seeing them for the first time. Concerning the creative process, both art pieces have undergone several changes throughout the whole process. Whereas I have found myself more doubtful with Time's Puppet, this being my work in regard to stereotype, the main concept and ideas for alter ego have mostly been clear for me since the beginning, which caused the eureka moment to appear sooner. Even though I work on both of them at the same time, the first one I'm introducing in this presentation falls under the item stereotype, which I identify with everything that is expected from a specific element or individual, mainly due to social constructs that have arisen within the different communities and societies. At first, many ideas came to my mind at once. I ended up focusing on how one's internal growth, while important, is barely recognized due to society's standards. Even so, I felt like I was falling into a cliché, as none of these ideas seemed to be as close to me as I wanted them to be. During the following days, I began to detach myself from this task, giving myself some time to rethink the idea. Nonetheless, I had only been focusing on other assignments those days, leaving every other aspect of myself aside so that I could focus on them. As a result, I tend to demand more of myself, even in those stressful times in which I'm not cognitively capable of pulling through, so I often overwork myself to feel that I have done enough. Therefore, it was interesting to find out that this chaotic period also allowed a clearer image of the future art piece to settle in my mind. It was a weird time for it to happen, but I do believe it was an eureka moment that proves that creativity can be used to solve problems effectively. It was in one of these dark moments when I just grabbed the blank paper and let it happen, manifesting creativity's flexibility as I had to adapt myself to the situation I was currently in so that I could keep working. Whenever I am in this sort of episode, I blame myself for not making the most out of the time I have. But what does that really mean? I wonder. According to what I do, it seems like it is a matter of being productive in terms of working. Everything adds up to time. Ever since I can remember, I have always been afraid of time. People are used to claiming that you can play with time as you please, but I disagree. Indeed, you can choose what to do with it, but it is one of the few things that cannot be changed nor be reversed. This led me to understand that society does actually play with it. It determines what a person is supposed to have done by the time they are X years old, and what they must be working on, along with where could they be if only they had known how to use their time better. For this art piece, I chose the traditional dry technique, color pencils. I outlined the drawing directly with them to avoid gray traces of pencil. By the time I had to draw the puppet on the canvas, I hesitated to draw myself. For me, one of the most beautiful things that art offers is the freedom each individual has when interpreting a piece. The final art piece will evoke different feelings according to each person's thoughts, experiences, and beliefs, so the main idea was to make a puppet everyone could see themselves as. But I noticed that it wouldn't make a difference. Then what stereotype can be found here? I consider ourselves as puppets, controlled by society's views and standards, which I have represented through the doll maker's hand. Following this perception, people are told what to think and how to feel, neglecting their own free will, which I have portrayed through the hanging heart, brain, and scissors, as the puppet is not even trying to reach them anymore. The box, full of memories, represents what cannot be restored and what the person has seen themselves forced to leave behind. Still, there is a thought that used to help me cope with this feeling, even if it's not related to how reality works. The recognition of the body as a vessel for the soul. Thus, bodies could be understood as avatars that express what there is on the inside. Quite a romantic thought, isn't it? After all, there is still a remnant of hope that seeks a new reality by perceiving the truth that surrounds us from a different perspective. As for the second piece of work, I have chosen otherness, which can be found within an individual's duality, hence the different sides of the personality according to the context they are in. Therefore, I immediately thought of tarot as a way to portray this concept. Despite this, I knew nothing about tarot, so I began by doing some research in order to analyze and understand the meaning behind each one of the major arcana. Then I also posted a question on my social media so I could learn about the meaning they hold for other people. I drew a vague sketch of what was meant to be a trial room, where someone was about to be judged. The floor was fluted, so that the reverse card's reflection was visible. However, this idea didn't grow on me, so I took some time to refine it. I was encouraged to create my own designs, which I would adapt through characterization, photography, and edition afterwards. Without further ado, I began to imagine how they would look like so that I could prepare my attire. Suddenly, while I was going through the cards again, the eureka moment hit me again. I could focus on the duality of the lovers, but they would be represented through two other different cards whose positive values kept them together, while their reverse attributes choked one another. Needless to say, this is hinted at in the title of this piece of art, Alter Ego, with the number 6 as its is. Right in the middle, the Emperor gives the viewer a confident look. Justice, with her serenity, stays by his side. They represent the lovers, but they are not alone. The High Priestess appears as a spiritual guide to give her some advice, while Judgment arrives with an important announcement. Similar figures emerge at the bottom of the picture, representing the reverse side of them all. The Emperor has lost his mind, and only Injustice remains. Without internal light, Justice seeks help from the High Priestess, but she turns around feeling nothing but apathy. Last but not least, Judgment doesn't care either. However, there are another two cards in this photo. The composition's background is heavily inspired by the Chariot, which represents duality through blue and red. Meanwhile, there is water dripping from the upper side of the picture as a reference to the star. This piece of work allowed me to work with techniques and materials I'm familiar with, and something worth mentioning is the importance given to Judgment's design. I wanted them to resemble an angel, but not the social concept that perceives it like a baby with wings. Thus, I followed the interpretation that perceives them as a mystical mass of eyes, wings, and circles, seraphim. I created this symbol as well as both headbands, a golden and a silver one, for each side the card is facing. As a whole, I have certainly enjoyed this project. I appreciate that we could choose the items and interpret them freely, and from an educational position, I believe this is how the creative process should be introduced, so students are eager to experiment with the techniques they are interested in, so that their love for art can be discovered.